What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 120. My name is Bret, aka Enigma 9011, and today I am joined by my good old friend, James. James, how's it going, man?
It's good. It's real good.
Thank you for being on the podcast today, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, very excited. It's been a while since James and I have kind of talked, but we have gone, our friendship goes way, way back, many feet of height shorter. But I'm excited to catch up with him today, with you guys, and kind of talk about our history a little bit and then some other topics, so it should be a good time. But remember, guys, if you want to catch this podcast live, you can go over to twitch.tv/enigma9011, or it's live every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can join the chat and talk with us. If you're a subscriber over there, we'd love to have you. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. It drops over on YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, hashtag ad merch store. Get all of your swag over there, t-shirts, cups, backpacks, and more. Rep the brand, support us, and we would love you for it. So yes, James and I go way back. This is his first time on the podcast. Very excited. Like I said, going way back, we have a history, and our history is with Taekwondo. So somehow, in my livelihood, I have not picked James's brain on how the hell he got into Taekwondo and his Taekwondo journey. So I want to do that today.
Ooh.
So, James, let's start off right at the beginning. How did you get involved in Taekwondo?
I think I was 14, and I just gotten introduced to PC gaming, and I was spending a lot of time sitting in front of the computer. And my parents got a little worried. I got a little heavier, and my doctor recommended Taekwondo. My mom wasn't super keen on it because, martial arts and violence and all that stuff. And the doctor managed to talk her around it and, pointed out it'd be good with my ADHD and all that. And so took some trial lessons and liked it. And I got to yell and kick things, which, what teenager doesn't like to do that from time to time? And so just kept going, and then I think my Taekwondo training lasted 13 years in total. But by the time I moved, so
Nice. So 14. So I assume you went straight to the adult class. Was that an interesting way to jump into it?
It wasn't too bad. There were a couple other teenagers in the class. In fact, I think there was probably 3 or 4 older people, late 50s, early 60s in the class, and then most of it I think was actually teenagers.
Okay.
And of course there were some teenage girls, so I was sold. And I can't remember hardly any of the people anymore.
Right.
But I do remember Phil and his son Matt, that we did many demos together with Matt over our years on the demo teams as instructing. And Phil and I think we started within 2 or 3 days of each other, and we actually wound up getting our black belts together. And I think our second degrees too. So yeah.
Wow. Now, were you always the Saratoga location, or did you start Clifton Park?
No, I was at Saratoga.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it had only been open for a year when I went there.
In the tiny, narrow rectangle
yeah,
of a building.
Was it West Ave?
Yeah,
West Ave. Yeah, go in there, and my sister got involved with it too a couple years later, back when it was still at the West Ave location, and then she wound up getting her first degree black belt too.
Nice. So, with your training, did you have a favorite part that you enjoyed throughout that 13-year journey?
Yeah, what wasn't my favorite part? Seriously, probably sparring was my least favorite just because I felt I wasn't I felt like that was my weakest.
Okay.
But it's actually also the only thing I ever medaled in the tournament.
Oh,
So
really? Huh.
yeah, I got second place one time, and I was super happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but probably, I think the self-defense, like the ground fighting and the wrestling and stuff, that was probably my favorite.
Cool. Yeah, we had some good matches during those sessions in class. That was always a fun time. I remember that jump back kick. I was like, oh god, I gotta avoid this.
Well, Brian Myers taught me that. I
Mm.
don't know if you remember him. It was after I started helping out with the teaching on the
Mm-hmm.
SWAT team, and he caught me with that one time in a training in Clifton Park, and it's the first and only backflip I've ever done in my life was when he caught me right in the chest with a jump back kick, and I was like, I gotta learn that. So I started making use of it.
Nice. So you mentioned that you liked all of the training parts, and then you mentioned competition. Were you a fan of competition, or was that kind of like, I mean, personally, like I hated competition, and then like I kind of got more used to it as things went on. But at first, I was like, nah, this is not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I think I was in the same boat. I was always shy, not super confident. They're, taller, faster, stronger, skinnier kids than me were always there. And I never like felt like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the tournament and I'm gonna clean up. It was always like, I'm gonna go to the tournament and get kicked a lot.
Yep.
and, uh, and then, of course, it encouraged a lot for like instructors and assistants and stuff like that to help teach or to compete. So then I got into it, and it wasn't as bad. The more I competed, it got a lot easier and a lot better. And um, I think I medaled when I was a second degree.
Mm.
So
Nice. And then you had mentioned getting involved in the teaching side of things. So the SWAT team, the like special winning attitude team, the like trainees
oh yeah.
into eventually, instructing. So, how did you enjoy the teaching aspect or that side of things?
It's funny. When I was young, like when I first started doing it, I was not into kids
Mm-hmm.
like at all. I didn't like being around kids. I didn't like talking to kids. I was just like I didn't have a lot of experience with them, and so I liked helping out with the adult classes, teaching, and I liked teaching. It was a little bit, scary at first because I was shy and I wasn't used to it, and there's a little bit of pressure. Um,
A little bit, yeah.
yeah, I can still vividly remember Master Pei leaving a like an intro class one time to yell at me full volume across the whole school, and I was
Oh.
like, oh gosh, this is the worst. uh, but I think it was the Mighty Might class where like those little like 4 and 5 year olds, and like you teach a couple classes and you give out a couple high fives and you're their favorite person.
Right.
And so you know they would come in and they'd be excited to see you and all excited. you know a lot of them couldn't stay in line to save their life, but they just had so much energy, and they were so like welcoming and friendly that it was like, all right, these guys are kind of cool. And then uh I think your belt group was actually like one of the first belt groups I ever had as like an actual instructor, where I think like I got you guys as yellow or orange belts.
Hmm.
And like then I was like responsible for some people, and like you guys actually listened, and I saw progress in you guys, and I was like, I helped with that. This is kind of cool.
Mhm.
And then I fell in love with it, and I enjoyed it so much. I really I've tried to get back into it or tried to create the space a couple different times down here to get back into it. It just hasn't worked out with, I was just about to like, I think in like a week or two, I'm going to go down and start taking some martial arts lessons again. And COVID came out like that day. It was like, I guess I'm not taking Taekwondo again.
Right.
It's like, but hopefully in the future I can get back into it. But it was a blast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now,
it's a lot of fun.
Through teaching, was there a certain aspect or curriculum that you maybe struggled with to kind of, I don't know, translate it, I guess, to the students to make it easy to understand?
I don't think so particularly.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one kid, I'm not going to put her name out there, but she was a little yellow belt girl, and she could not get the roundhouse kick, spin around roundhouse kick down.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting with her after class one day for like 15, 20 minutes, and I was like, okay, do your kick. And she did her kick, and I was like, okay, now, and like I broke the room down into like little 10-degree segments of space, and I was like, now look at this pole, now look at that mirror, now look at the shield rack, look at this, and like I worked her through the process of turning her whole body around completely, and like I watched the light bulb go on in her brain, and like after that she became like, she was a good student before that, but she became like, her skill level just skyrocketed. So I don't really remember a lot of difficulty communicating with anybody. But I was the one talking, so maybe I was terrible and nobody ever told me. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
it's weird how those like hurdles or like mental barriers like stop people, because I've seen that too. It's like, it's the simplest thing, and that's, for some reason there's that disconnect, and like you said, after that it's like, we're going, like everything else makes sense. The floodgates are open. So through teaching, obviously the various levels, kids up to adults, did you find that benefited your own training when going back and forth, obviously from teaching to taking your own classes later on?
Yeah, I think it did. It certainly helped with like familiarity and confidence, and just, I mean, you can't help but get a little bit better when you're, practicing instead of, classes for 45 minutes twice a week. You're there for 5 hours, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times a week. It's just, you just kind of become immersed, and it starts to permeate you, and so it definitely helped my skill level, and it helped my confidence too, because I started to learn about, well, it's not the biggest thing in the world if you make a mistake. It's, if you get tongue-tied in front of the students, you just make a joke and move on. If you fall down, you're like, well, this is what not to do. Like, it just it definitely helped my skill level.
Good. And then you mentioned demo team earlier. So you've been part of regular demo team and then eventually all-star demo team. How was that journey for you?
It was cool. I remember when I first started seeing some of those guys in the really cool, the red, white, and black demo team uniforms. And like I was watching them do backflips and these flying kicks and breaking bricks and boards. And looking back on it, like I never thought about it until just now in this terms, but it's like one of those first times that I had an aspiration that I achieved. In terms of like looking at something like, if you told me when I was 14, taking my, with my little white belt on, it's like, hey, you're going to be on the demo team someday. I'd have been like, you guys are going to be hurting for people, aren't you? Like, It's like I can't even jump right now. Like, come on. Uh, but like thinking back about that, like it was really cool. It was like to be on there. There was a lot of pressure. I remember so many like Friday nights there till like 11:30. You come back at Saturday at like 8 or 9 in the morning, train all day, and then like you'd pack up, like especially for like the banquets and stuff. Like,
Oh yeah.
Friday night rehearsal after a week of teaching in classes, you go and do like, of course it'd be like a SWAT team meeting at like 8, and then like at 10 would be the demo team training for that banquet, and then that morning you'd be back the next morning on Saturday at like 9 a.m. and like train for like 2-3 more hours, and you'd stop in time to go home maybe and put your suit on and like clean your gear a little bit, and then you'd go right to the banquet hall. And it was like, I remember a lot of days like that. But the upside of all that is like, I always had friends around. I always had somewhere to be, people to talk to, something to do. Like I wasn't really bored a lot as a teenager, I don't think, or a young adult, because through college and all that. So it was really cool, really cool being on the demo team and going through that process and learning some of the cool skills that we didn't teach the other students, like the wall run, and that I never pulled off. But the super secret bow staff form, and you'd pull a move out, and the kid would be like, "Whoa!" And you'd be like, "Can't teach you that yet." Like, yeah, it was great.
Definitely a lot of good times. Yeah, exactly like you were saying with the banquets and even the championships. Like, it's this whole thing, and then like the banquet, yeah, like you said, you got to teach classes in the morning. Then you get that little bit of time of maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and then you got to be there at 4. Then you rehearse. Then everybody's arriving. Then you're sitting and waiting, and then you finally go out. And then after that, you're rushing to get all nice and actually party. And it's like, oh god.
Yeah, you throw it, like putting on your suit and like trying to not smell bad, dance for like 3 hours straight, and you're just like poured in sweat afterwards. Oh man, 16! What a beautiful time in my life.
A lot of good times with demos. I do remember you and I putting together a skit that went over pretty well, because we did it a few times over the course of things. And usually with demos, it was like one and done, and move on to the next thing. But yeah, we had set up something, I think it was a ninja fight, bow staff, and extrema stick. And we did that a few different times, extravaganzas, like belt ceremonies, good times.
Shameless plug, I have tried to look back through my Facebook and find that skit on the videos, and Facebook deleted it.
Really?
I can't find it. Yeah, I can never find it in my videos. Maybe it's because I was like tagged in it, and I didn't actually own. So if you have a copy of that video,
I think I do. So I'll have to check after this and send it to you. And we'll be like, oh wait, we weren't as cool as we thought.
You're like, yeah, I missed that move.
Yep.
That move.
But yeah, good times.
I do remember that was a cool skit.
Yeah.
At least I thought it was super cool. And like, I remember watching like a bunch of fight movies and stuff like that, like pulling different moves out of them to put it together.
Yeah, it was a great time. Definitely. So out of all the demo team stuff, or rather just all your training, do you have a favorite thing that you had learned technique wise?
Ooh. I think so. There was this one like technique where like you're supposed to like block a punch and then grab it and then like back fist and then like back fist. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Every now and then I'll just be like sitting in my car at a red light and I'm like, still got it. I don't have it. It's been gone for a long time. That's probably like one of the coolest ones. I thought was pretty cool. There's a lot. There's like learning the 540 was pretty cool. Like flying sidekick. The knife hand fingers straight through the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that one hurt so bad. But it was like it was a little like, I don't know if it's a little sadism or a little bit of like just like I'm stronger than you, or like watching other people try it after you were able to pull the be like you show it in a demo, and of course like after that there'd be like a board breaking week and you'd see a bunch of people try it and you'd be like, that's right. You couldn't get it. Right. I am so good.
Let's boost this ego a little bit. Okay, we're gonna move on.
Let's get that ball pump out and blow up the ego just a little bit. Yeah. So many cool, like I remember I tried to find or thought about trying to find, I think I still have on Facebook the picture from when you first got on demo team too, because we wound up on demo team not that far apart.
Oh, really?
You were a lot younger.
Yeah.
And when Olivo used to jump off the chairs, okay, and I've got you on my shoulders.
Yep.
Yeah, and like you were like a junior black belt at the time,
right?
And like then you went to being like, like you went from junior black belt to being like SWAT team to assistant instructor, like, and you were like as tall as me, and like then you actually like got ahead of me in the ranks.
Yeah.
And got your 4th degree and all. I was like, man, that's pretty cool.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Kind of got there.
Look what that helped me.
Yeah, you did. I mean, you were definitely there. There were chapters like, okay, it was, Hildreth, and then, Gray came in, and then you, Lindsay, and Matt, like, and then, it's a building block. Yeah, you guys definitely helped out a lot, and, I'll be forever grateful for that. A lot of good times.
Yeah.
A lot of good times.
It was a privilege being a part of you and so many other kids. Like, hopefully they took something away from it, and took some of those, like the 6 principles of a black belt, modesty, courtesy, perseverance, indomitable spirit, self-control, like integrity, that one too. Modesty, courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, indomitable spirit. Some kind of order. Hopefully some of that rubbed off on somebody. But, I still keep tabs on a few of the people, and it seems like some of them are doing pretty good. So,
so I guess
just one guy.
My last question to you then, since you're mentioning values that you hope that, were put on to the students or they have carried on since, what would you say has been your biggest learning moment from your Taekwondo journey?
That's a big question. I have to say the one I use most still is the self-control. And learn, like, now don't grow up and become a maladjusted adult, people, but learning to not react in the moment, and to try to space the situation out from myself and just keep reacting, I guess intellectually to a problem has been extremely useful to me in my later life, especially in my job now. That ability, because some people get caught up in different things that they see or do, and they can't get out of it enough to either like save themselves or to handle like an emergency or problem or something like that. So I think that being in a situation that was like, yeah, you're getting choked, you know, take a breath, figure it out. What can't, like, you're somebody's kneeling on your back and they got your arm behind your back and they're choking you out. It feels like I'm gonna die.
Mm.
But like, what can you move? Oh, I can move this shoulder. All right, cool. Can you kind of like wiggle that shoulder out so you got a little bit of leverage and you can kind of push? Yeah, all right, I can. Okay, cool. Now, like, push that shoulder just a little bit and kind of get some, work through problems mentally, instead of just kind of getting swallowed by it. I think is probably the best thing I took away from that.
Very nice. All right. Well, thank you, James, for sharing your Taekwondo journey. It's been nice to,
Yeah.
like Chat said, like Mr. G said, walk down memory lane, go
Oh,
through that again.
yes, oh man, I have thought of so many things since we've been talking about all the different demos, and it has been really good walking down memory lane with that.
Definitely, definitely. So we're gonna move on to topic 2. James, what is your topic today, good sir?
Oh, I wanted to, thinking about the Taekwondo, we were talking about it last night a little bit, is it kind of sparked, my brain about like values and why do we have the values we have, and like, where do we get them from? Why do we hold on to them? How do we evaluate them? How do we determine this is good, this is wrong? Because I love a deep conversation with somebody about why they believe what they believe. As I've gotten older, I've learned to maybe not try to change people's beliefs as much, but to kind of explore them with them, so that I can understand them. Because growing up, my worldview was very black and white, and and gray is really hard for people who are black and white people, because it's confusing. Because there's a right and there's a wrong, and if you're a good person and who's black and white, you got to be on right. And if you're a good person or a bad person who's black and white person, then you do other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so something I had learned as I got older, like, there's a lot of gray in the world, and it's very interesting to kind of look at that and try to interact with people in gray, instead of trying to, like, pull them out of the white. And I think, a lot of times people get really scared of, like, if I am a blank piece of white paper and I go interact with somebody who's gray, then I'm going to get a little bit of their gray on me, and I'm not going to be white anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's scary for some people. And but I don't really think it works that way. I think it really just helps you to appreciate, who they are, where they're coming from, and it lets you relate to them on a level that, especially if you're trying to help them, might actually help them down the road, instead of like trying to, oh, by the way, I know you feel like there's a lot of problems or you're a failure, but let me tell you about this other thing where you're also failing. It's like, wow, thank you so much
Right.
for letting me know that I'm more of a failure than I thought I was. It's like, yeah, you're welcome. Glad I could help. Let me know if you need anything. It's terrible. Why do we treat people like that? Um, so yeah, like, what do you think about, like, and prep for this, I was thinking about, like, the first movie I remember, and the lessons I took away from that. But I'm going to ask you that first. Like, what is your first memory or experience of, like, values, and why?
Ah, boy. I don't know if I could pin it down to like a moment per se, but I would just say maybe like the first manifestations of like what's right, what's wrong, those values, that growth obviously, comes from my parents, that, your family, and like, okay, what do they value and how do they treat people and stuff like that, and that kind of obviously rubbed off on me. And I'd say that is where the first interaction or start of that growth would have begun, and like has carried since, like formulating my own sheet of paper as we're talking here with all the various colors. And like, yeah, I would say it'd have to start there. Like, once again, how do they treat people? What are their focuses on? Like, what determines success to them? What should I work for? What isn't important? What, should I not ignore, but maybe like push to the side and keep me on the straight and narrow, whatever. Keep me on the path of, what I should be doing or focusing on. So, yeah, I would say that would be the start of it, is that moment.
Yeah. So I remember, it's weird. A lot of things are weird for me. The 1930s King Kong. Mm-hmm. Did you ever see that movie? It's like the claymation giant, like toy gorilla. Yeah, I mean it's 1930s movie budget, so they're like claymation and dinosaurs and all that. But mm-hmm. like I remember watching, like the hero in that movie is a guy named Jack Driscoll.
Okay.
And he was like the coolest guy to me when I was, I think I saw it when I was like 6 or 7. I was like, just, like, he's so cool. And like, he went and he saved the girl and like, helped, save the people and kill the, King Kong, and which, is an unfortunate side effect in the movie. And that's something else I was thinking about. But he was just like the coolest guy. And that, like, I was thinking about, that's the first movie I ever remember watching was King Kong, and wanting to be someone like him who, was dashing and strong and like, had the cool, like, I mean, he had a little first mate's hat on and a 6-shooter in his belt. And I was just like, dude, that guy is the man. Mm-hmm. Like, gotta be like that guy. And that shaped a lot of like, watching movies later, reading books later, talking to people later. That kind of archetype is, I was drawn to people who were like that and who talked similarly, had similar traits to that. But one thing I really liked, and I was thinking about today about that movie, and just an interesting side note is a lot of times, especially like in literature, like I read a lot of history and stuff like that, you would see, revenge is a big motivating factor. But, the story of King Kong, if anybody doesn't know it, these people, like the 1930s, they're sailing around, they're going to shoot a motion picture on this deserted isle where this mythical monster giant gorilla lives, and they don't know that there's other people on this island. And they get there and the other people find out about them, and they kidnap the heroine of the movie to make her a sacrifice. And there's never in the movie this part about how there's no revenge for the people on the boat. They don't go in, like, I mean, where the technology difference between the people on the boat and the people on the island is massive. And like, they just go in and they focus on rescuing their people. Mm-hmm. And instead of like, oh, you stole this person from us, we're going to get you back. Like, and I guess long term in the end, they kind of help them by taking Kong off of their island. But also there's a lesson about, just kind of, it's okay to like be fascinated by mythical things, but kind of leave them where they are. Don't go busting in and like, sticking your fingers in stuff that you don't need to stick it in, because, then, you have to shoot, 80-foot giant gorillas off of the Empire State Building with biplanes, and that's not good for anybody. Like, but yeah, that was my first heroic character that I ever was really introduced to. And I think like that really shaped who I wanted to be with my life, and shaped a lot of the things that I was interested in, a lot of the fearlessness or that I wanted to, have, the skills, knowledge, stuff like that was kind of pushed my life in a direction, I think. And it's always like I look back on it and I can kind of see that throughout, and especially through movies. I think because the first experience was with a movie that I like can really like put my finger on and say this created a long term side effect in my life.
Right.
Yeah. So that's I love movies. I love heroic characters in movies, and it's interesting how, like looking back at it, I think that movie was a little bit ahead of its time with the kind of like the whole like maybe we shouldn't have done this. Maybe we shouldn't have like we should have just kind of left it alone and not jumped into something that we didn't need to be involved with, which I mean that's what I took out of it. And like that's not prevalent in a lot of like other movies from the era because cinema is not usually too far ahead of its time because it's not relatable once it gets too far. Like, once the ideas get too abstract, it's only relatable to an ever reducing audience if it's the more abstract the ideas are from them. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's a 1930s movie, so there's still some. We've learned a lot about culture and what's good and what's wrong in society since then. But I think that movie is a pretty good movie overall, looking back at it. So yeah, what do you think? Where do you think the values from Taekwondo? How have they have affected you from then to now? Where do you see them still like playing out in your life?
Oof. Well, they definitely are. You mentioned the six principles before. Like that's always something just I've tried to focus on and live by. And I mean, in a way, it's kind of silly to think about because like, oh, they're just words on the wall. Like you can take that and interpret it however you want. But yeah, for some reason, those always stuck out to me. Like if I'm going to chase this goal of black belt, like I'm trying to obviously with the physical side of thing, but also, spiritually, mentally, I'm trying to focus on these aspects. Like that's the kind of person I want to be. I don't want to be the person that's going out there and just being like, oh, I'm a black belt. Let me, beat you up, etc. Whatever, assert dominance. Like I want to try and be a helpful person. And like with those words and then also my own, side of the teaching journey, like how can I help you achieve what you're trying to achieve? And like whether it was teaching Taekwondo or even now, like trying to do that as well. Like what inspires you or what goals do you want to chase? Like obviously we all need to do a job, these mandatory things to make life happen. But then like you got to do stuff for yourself too. Like where do you find enjoyment? And hearing people share those stories of like, oh, I enjoy doing X, I enjoy doing Y, like that's great. How can I help with that? Or like how can I support that in any way? And like that's something too that you mentioned, the gray areas. Like some people are very motivated to do those or they're very down on themselves, like I can't do that, like that's silly that I even have that kind of aspiration to put the time into it. It's like, no, like I get it, I totally understand where you're coming from. A balance of time, a balance of funds, like are very important. But if you want to do something, you should and you can. It's just, a matter of balance, like everything. Hi, Artemis. Like it's just something that you gotta figure out. And if, there's a way that I can help you reach that, then like to me that's something important that I want to try and do. And I would definitely say Taekwondo has helped with that from the teaching aspect and stuff with that, because I received that from my own teachers and fellow students. It's like paying it forward. How can I help you? So yeah, it's definitely had a big influence.
I think that's what was the word I was going to use? I don't remember. I think that's one of the lessons that, because I took that away from it too, the kind of idea that some goals are farther away than others, um, but they still are achievable. And some goals are 10 steps, and some goals are 1,000.
Right.
And some of those, 1,000-step goals, those are really long steps too. But it's still worth going after them, that a goal is still achievable. I moved down to where I live now and with the goal of getting the job that I have now. But I spent the first 2 years working at a grocery store and volunteering at my job, my current job, to put in face time, to sweat equity, we call it, to learn, to get training, and it paid off. But it took two uh, 2 to 2.5 years between when I got here to when I actually signed on the dotted line for employment with what I wanted to get. And that was a long time. And there was a lot of there were a couple months that, like, grocery stores, it's not a super high paying job, and there are a couple months where it was like, maybe I should have stayed where I was. I was doing pretty well up there. But my spirit wasn't satisfied there. And so, like, I could have kept making a lot of money, but what's the cost with the spiritual cost of pushing your spirit down or your heart down,
Right.
to just pad your wallet, and what's that going to do to me long term, and how is that going to, because it does harm you to kind of kill that aspect of yourself in the name of something else. And sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes self-sacrifice, love, for instance, is a great reason to sacrifice. Helping people is a great reason to sacrifice a little, sometimes. But other, like money, sometimes very, very limited. So how do you think we take those values, how do we make them mean something to someone else? How do we make them, because we have those values, and we'll just stick with the 6 principles of a black belt for continuity's sake. So it means something to me, and then I convey that to you through my actions, through what I try to convince you is important. How do we pass that on? How do you make someone else believe that this is important versus just repeating it as we're counting off push-ups?
Right. That's a tough one. And you said make, and I think that's the big, like, you can't do that. And that sounds weird. Like, it's your goal, but honestly, with anything, you can't force it, because as soon as you start forcing an issue, it's like, no. And you mentioned this even at the very beginning, like, oh, this is one side, this is the other side. How do they do that side? No, there's no, like, flexibility. So it's weird, because once again, that is your intention. Like, I want to help this person through this. But as soon as that, like, forcefulness, I don't know if this is the right phrasing, but as soon as that happens, you've kind of defeated the purpose. So I think the way to kind of share these values with people, it comes down to maybe only one or two things, but being open and honest with what you're saying and being genuine. Like, if it's something in class, for example, like, all I can do is share my experience and once again be honest with it, and then from there it's it's out in the wild, and if someone reaches out and takes it, good. If not, hey, I made the attempt, it wasn't reciprocated. That's fine. And it's just, the repeated attempts is fine, but once again, it's just like the good intentions. I can't be like trying to force it down anyone's throat. And that can go for anything. But yeah, just being open and honest with it. I think that's what people will pick up on, is that genuineness. Because you can tell from people just like how they're talking. You're like, okay.
This person actually believes it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say, just that is just how you're putting those messages out there, and, putting out the care and the love in your statement. And like I said, maybe, it's not taken in from them, and that's fine. They're their own person. They need to, grow at their pace too. Maybe later on they'll latch on to it. Maybe just take some time to gestate, or they're not in a position that either they want the help or they're ready for the help, or, that message to come in. Yeah, it's a weird dynamic.
Yeah. This next question is going to be even weirder.
Oh boy.
So we just discussed, like, it has to be altruism. You can't make somebody believe something.
Right.
You can only make them, like, make is the wrong word. You can only portray a sincerity that is strong enough that they want a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
They want what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we keep our portrayal, our living it, our genuineness, how do we keep the altruism in that, the you might call it the nobility or the purity of your intention to simply be for the benefit of someone else versus look how many people I have behind me.
Right.
Like, look, I've got, 100,000 people on Twitter that follow me and retweet what I tweet. Like, there's some altruistic people like that out there, who have, hundreds or millions of followers. But how do we ensure that we are being altruistic when we're passing on those values instead of just trying to pat our own ego again, or because we think we can fix them, or like, we're trying to take a little bit of the gray out of their little puddle and try to make it a little bit clearer, a little bit whiter, or whatever. Like,
man, that is an interesting question, because like, I know we're talking a lot about Taekwondo, or at least tying that in right now, but I can think of a specific example of someone who was doing it maybe differently, where they were trying to like get a following and stuff like that. And, I love this person to death, but like that aspect, I was always like, is this really what you want to be doing? Like, you're teaching, and then you're like, oh, so-and-so, like, these are my posse. And then, like, you're just focused on, like, those people. And I was always like, I don't know. It's weird, because I've never thought about it this way, but I've never, and maybe this is big-headed of me, I've never really had that thought in my head of, like, oh, I'm doing this for me kind of thing. Like, I've never had to give myself this mental check of, like, what are my intentions, or like, I don't know. But I think I already mentioned mental check, but I think that's the big thing of like keeping things pure, or the right intentions, is like, you got to kind of check in with yourself from time to time and keep yourself in control. Because if you're not going to do it, no one is going to. Because then it turns into the whole thing, like we just said, of like making someone to do something that just is happening to you, and then you're not going to want to do it, and all that stuff. It's, wow, that is, why does that happen? And then like, how do you stay on that right path? I don't know. It's just like communicating with yourself, like making sure you're doing the right thing. But then I guess you could also flip it on its head. Like some people could boost their own ego and be like, oh yeah, I am doing the right thing. Kind of, it's weird. Maybe having a good support group, like having people you trust to talk to and communicate, that's important too, to keep you on, be too true to yourself, I guess, in the right path. Man.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the you get your values from where whoever instilled them in you, and so they're kind of like the signpost, and you're someone else's signpost, and so you kind of eventually there's a little bit of a train where you see you're following along with someone, and there's enough of a connection that you've seen whether or not that's real in that person, and so you then kind of, I don't want to say hold each other accountable, but you develop a closeness, I think, with people who you can kind of pull them aside and be like, hey man, this isn't it. Right. This is not the way. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is the way. This is not the way.
Keep the damn helmet on. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, such a great show. I love that show. I was just watching it before this too. God, there's been so much great values-based content out lately. It's been awesome. But like, I think that's it. I think you hit the nail on the head of having a group of people who are committed enough that they can be corrected, or influenced, or allow themselves to be not locked into my interpretation of these values. Because you mentioned earlier that the values mean a little, modesty means one thing to one person and something else to someone else. And so having them firm, those concepts firm, but also moldable enough that you can take off a chunk if you realize, well, that's not really modesty.
Right.
Because modesty to some people, we'll just stick with the Taekwondo analogy and just beat that horse right into the ground. You may have somebody who they can do a spin hook kick in a sparring match and just match ender right there every time. And there's nothing really wrong with that they're that proficient with it. And to one person, them not bragging about, oh, I got the best spin hook kick. Come on, let's go spar. I'll spin hook kick you right into the ground. The match will be over in 30 seconds. Like, that's immodest, bragging. But to another person, modesty may just be like, I've got a really good spin hook kick and I am not going to trot it out at every single opportunity.
Right.
Because it's not helpful. It keeps me in one spot. It just puts me into a rut of this is all I can do. No one will want to spar with me, so I won't learn how to fight new people based on their styles, their size, their height, the length of their kicks and all that stuff. It puts them into a rut. And so just using their super technique is like at every opportunity, that's immodest because it's like a form of bragging,
right?
And so the other person who does it, as often as they can, whenever they can, but they don't brag about it, might eventually get to a point where they're like, I need to stop using this so much. That's modesty, and just kind of shave a little bit off of that block in their brain of this is what modesty means, until it and it's going to change shape a little bit.
For sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the big important thing, is being flexible, like not like giving up your values, but like adapting to the changes that are going to happen. Because there's no way you're going to be the same person, for example, when you're 10 and your values when you're 10 to 30. Oh man, I really want this action figure. Maybe, but you know what I mean. Like, it's going to grow over time. So yeah, I think having that flexibility is good.
A very wise man once told me And this was years ago, but I was talking to him, and I wished him a happy Father's Day because he like, my dad's still alive. He's in my life. He's a great, great, great dad. I cannot say enough. As I've become an adult, and as I've become, an adult who's aware of, mental health issues with myself, because we all have issues, here or there. There's very few of us who are like perfectly well adjusted. Um, and as I've become a husband, uh, I have realized just how amazing a father my dad was. Um, so I can't say enough of it. But part of my childhood experience growing up, or my teenage years and early adult years, was the extreme benefit of having other men come alongside me and teach me, train me, coach me, um, mentor me in different ways. And some of the stuff my dad couldn't provide. Uh, and so, I wish this man a happy Father's Day one year, and he said, as I've gotten older, I've become sure of fewer and fewer things. But those things which I have become sure of, or which I remain sure of, I am more sure than I have ever been. And that's kind of stuck with me, of like, the things that really, really matter are not many. People being, basically it. You know, um, how you treat animals, that's important. How you do your job, that's important. But you could kind of lump them into the larger, I guess I wouldn't say people, I would say relationships is the thing. How I treat my dog when I just sat down and she wants to go out. That's a character thing, And so relationships to me are like the most important thing. Um, Everything past that is kind of either a sub aspect of that or non-important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so how we treat people, how we engage with them, when they disagree with us, um, how we engage with them when they don't want to engage with us, or when they don't like us or even hate. Uh, that is like my worldview of values is shrinking around how do you treat people?
Mm-hmm.
How do you treat relationships? How do you treat things that you get, like, how do I say, like, I get a lot of benefit out of my dog. She's a great dog. She's just awesome, so fun and whatever. But she can't really offer me anything of her own accord.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the pound and I got that dog and I brought her home. None of this was her choice, really.
Right.
And so that's all on me. And how I treat her in the middle of that is important. And so I think that's like the big thing is how we treat those around us, how we treat relationships, how we have discourse with people is just it. It is the thing, that little thing that as I'm older, I'm in my mid 30s. Like,
Older.
It's been a while since it's been a while since, and yeah, exactly. Someone else would laugh at that and say, this guy's still a baby, and I am in a lot of ways. But someone who's 14 does not see me that way. I used to think so much stuff mattered, and it's really just kind of boiling down to just be good to people. Just really, care about them. Don't, drive like a jerk. Don't yell at, people at restaurants. Like, don't yell at people at the voting booth or, the doctor's office or wherever. Just, really just, do anything in your power that could make somebody's day a little bit better. And modesty, courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit, all wrapped into one tight bundle of, how we treat people.
For sure. 100%. James, that was an awesome topic. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I was really looking forward to it when I thought of that. I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. I can't wait for this.
It's really good.
Or at least I hoped.
Yes, yeah. Really good. And those conversations are definitely important to have. So viewers, we're gonna flip it all on its head. If this is your first time watching or listening to the podcast, whenever I have a guest on for the first time, I like to take them through the lightning round of questions so you kind of get to know them a little bit better. So I'm going to ask James a series of questions right now. He's going to answer with the first thing that comes to his head. Any answer that he wants to elaborate on, he's more than welcome to do. But if he just wants to keep it on the answer, he can do that as well. James, are you ready?
Yes.
Okie dokie. Don't worry, not too hard. First one, favorite color?
Green.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs. All day.
Favorite game?
Ooh. Are we talking like childhood game, board game, video game?
Honestly, whatever you want. I know that doesn't help because I'm just widening the scale, but anything you want.
Golly.
If you want to break it into sections, like, oh, this is my favorite game now, this is my favorite game then, more whatever you want to do.
Sure. My favorite board game, without a doubt, is a board game called Shogun. It's you played Shogun. Yeah. For those who don't know, it's under a different name now, and I can never remember the name. Ikusa, Ikusa, okay. I believe is what it's called. It's like Risk, but it's set in feudal Japan, and it's a little bit more complicated than just normal dice rolls and all that. A lot of fun. Favorite board game for sure. Probably overall favorite computer video game for PC, probably Medieval 2 Total War.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Witcher 3 for PlayStation, but with the caveat that I have started Ghost of Tsushima and God of War, and I have not completed either yet, and they're both amazing.
Oh yeah.
So they're pushing up hard. The Witcher probably won't keep its seat. So yeah, there we go.
Nice. Very cool. We'll have to talk after God of War.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
Ooh. El Cid, 1970s, I believe. Charlton Heston and Sophia Loren. And it is a terrible adaptation of the actual man's life.
Okay.
But again, the character in those movies is, I would say that's probably the second character that I remember watching a movie and I want to be like that guy. True, noble. He gets betrayed by his own king and still is he goes off and conquers a city, and he sends the crown of that city to his king, because even though his king has exiled him, he's still that king's subject, and anything that he conquers in the name of his king. And in the end, that makes a big difference. And the king is that changes how the king interact with his world, because he realizes that he's been a terrible king, because he's oh, this is what I should be doing.
Right.
Hands down, El Cid.
Cool. Favorite type of music?
Rock. Lots of types of rock.
Uh-huh. Favorite song?
Not rock. It is a song by Switchfoot called Restless.
Okay. I don't think I know that one.
It's good. It kind of just a man's desire for meaning, purpose, peace. A lot of lifelong journey topics, feelings, stuff wrapped up into one song.
Cool. Let's check it out. What was your dream job when you were a kid?
I think I probably wanted to be in the Army more than anything. Yeah, never got into it. Medications I was on and stuff, just when I was interested, they weren't interested in me. When they were interested in me, I wasn't interested in them. Kind of this weird, whatever. But,
if you could have any animal to be a pet, what would you have?
Dang. We'll say bald eagle.
Okay.
With the stipulation that it can engage with me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just like living in my house. It's like I hate it here.
If you could meet, if you could meet one celebrity, regardless of alive or dead, or their famous status, who would it be?
Oh God. I really honestly don't know.
All right. Fair.
I like quotes from people. I like the ideas that they convey, but I'm not really a celebrity person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really attach to them much. There's a lot of them I probably like to meet and talk to.
Yeah.
But I couldn't narrow it down to one. Maybe Abraham Lincoln, but I feel like that's really generic.
Yeah. Fair enough. Favorite season?
Fall, for sure.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Okay. What is a skill you wish you could have?
Ooh. I'm going to go with carpentry. Because a carpenter friend of mine is going to help me install a fence in my backyard, and I'm really wishing I was better at it before we started this project.
And then last one I have is, what is a game that you want me to play?
Ooh. I'm going to Valheim.
All right.
Get on it. I think it's like $15 right now. But I know you like Minecraft. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a big Minecraft person. I've seen entertaining stuff with it, but I was like, my nephew asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you have Valheim?" And I was like, "I think so." And I looked, and I had access to it through a friend's library. And I looked it up a little bit, and I was like, Viking Minecraft. And 523 hours later.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, everyone, this has been another episode of the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast. My name is Bret, aka Enigma911, and today I was joined once again by James for the first time. James, thank you for being on the podcast today, man.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll have to have you on again. Maybe we'll go down memory lane some more, or maybe we'll talk board games. I know we kind of teased that as we're leading into this discussion, so we'll definitely have to have you on again, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man, much. Absolutely.
If you guys want to catch this podcast live, you can every week over on twitch.tv/Enigma911, or it's live at 8 p.m. on Sundays, Eastern Standard Time. You check it out over there. If you're a subscriber, you're more than welcome to join us on the conversation like Mrs. G did today. We'd love to have you over there. If you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. It drops the following week over on YouTube and podcast services, where it drops topic by topic and is put as one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. And last but not least, #ad merch store, and get all of your swag over there: t-shirts, cups, backpacks, and more. Rep the brand, support us, and we would love you for it. James, once again, thanks for being on, man. It was awesome to catch up with you and chat.
Yeah.
All right, viewers, listeners, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for giving us a watch, giving a listen, and we will see you guys on the next one. Take care.